What's up, everyone? We're doing this take on the archaeological find of archaic remains in Samana. This time, I'm putting all of the articles together in one video to have the complete story available on YouTube. The article that I posted before was an older article, so I'm putting them all together, plus with the recent news of the site, and we're going to get into this. But first, just as a reminder, the find with the DNA, we don't know as of yet if the archaic bones originated from Central America or South America, right? So let's get into this. If this was first cited September 1st, 2022, the article states researchers seek to know the life of the first settlers on the island of Hispaniola. Then another follow-up came up. This was in October of 2022, which says that the archaic remains found in Samaná are 5,300 years old. Then the recent one came out and said that it was older. This was from April 2023, saying that the oldest dwelling in the Antilles is in the Dominican Republic and is 5,500 years old. So let's go over this real quick. It says the oldest dwelling in the Antilles dates back to about 5,500 years old and is located in Samaná in the northeast of the Dominican Republic, very close to an archaic ritual burial site found last year by Spanish Dominican archaeologist Rodolfo Lopez and his team. The excavations led by Lopez, director of research at the Wahayona Institute in collaboration with the Academy of Sciences of the Dominican Republic and the Garcia Alvarado Foundation, are completely changing the vision of the first inhabitants of the Antilles. Faced with the image that that was had of them as less organized bands of nomadic people, now we are demonstrating that they were human groups settled in specific areas, the archaeologists explain. A month ago, they concluded with the new excavation, which has allowed to find that house in another shelter very close to the first site, and carbon-14 tests have determined the age of the remains of several homes of the first settlers of the island known today as Hispaniola, 3,500 years before Christ. One more step to understand the settlement in the area. This new finding will allow us to understand how was the settlement of the entire area. What we are doing is a spider archaeology. It is not doing an excavation in a place and leaving. It is working a wide area to understand what the movements of these people were like. Were they hunted? Were they buried? Where they lived? Where they collected food? We are trying to understand an entire settlement that is approximately 5,500 years old, the oldest that has been found in the Dominican Republic and one of the Antilles. With this excavation, we have located the area where the people who buried the bodies found last year in the burial site near the house lived. Most interesting thing for the archaeologists is that the conclusions arising from the first finding could be verified, that they had an area where they lived and another area where they buried the dead, which gives an idea of the social complexity that these groups had, of their cultural level, which was very high, of their level of rituality with death. These humans lived in large huts supported by shelters, with a very rich level of food. Who the archaeologist Lopez, who awaits the arrival of experts from the University of Winnipeg in Canada to make some studies of the seeds of plants and the starches present in the milling artifacts that have been found in the excavation. Its inhabitants, according to the theory of the expert of the professor Daniel Shelley, belonged to the group of Casimiroids, had a very varied diet and were great fishermen, both on the reef and in the open area, since they navigated easily in large canoes. Were they already farmers? The article says. What is still to be determined now that it's known that they were groups that settled in a place in a stable way is whether they were already engaged in agriculture, a question that experts from Canada intended to elucidate if they find cultivariable plants among the remains, which is most likely in the opinion of the Spanish archaeologists. But that as it may, they had very advanced customs that allowed them to survive in the same place in a very comfortable way, specifically in the cliff of Cape Samaná, an area which they arrived from the American continent or from other islands where they had landed, but their origin first is the continent. As the DNA studies are carried out at Harvard University, intend to determine. So this is what we're waiting for. Lopez stressed the importance of these findings. We are talking about the first inhabitants of the Antilles. We are recovering the origin of the population that lives here today. It is like finding Homo ancestor in Europe, he said as an analogy. These findings are part of the content of a conference that the expert gives this Thursday in Santo Domingo on the first archaic group that populated the Antilles, all based on the most modern research that is being done. Okay, and then once again, this is the latest one that came out Thursday, April 13th, 2023. Right, so if we go here, what just came out in 2020, right? This is an article called A Genetic History of the Pre-Contact Caribbean, and we're going to go right over here, right? It says on the archaic age of migrations, archaic associated individuals has ancestry most closely related to published Central and South American individuals than to North American individuals. Archaic related ancestry was 98% replaced by ceramic, meaning by the Arawaks, they were replaced. Ancestry in most of the Greater Antilles, but persisted with minimal admixture in Cuba over the last 2,500 years. All archaic associated individuals are consistent with deriving from a single source, contrary to a claim of additional migration with affinity to North American individuals. So from this article here, it states that the early archaic groups that were in the Antilles before the Arawaks arrived were either absorbed or displaced. So let's look at the recent article, which just came out a few days ago. Right, it says archaeologists who discovered cemetery in Samaná await permission to continue excavations in Cabrera. Right, this came out recently, August 3rd, 2023. It reads, the excavation carried out by the Dominican archaeologists near Cartón de Darío Beach in Cabrera Maria Trinidad Sanchez Province corresponds to the work of the team that last September discovered a cemetery in Samaná dating from approximately 3,000 to 4,000 years old, it says. Archaeologist Adolfo Lopez, a specialist in archaeological methodology, explained to reporters from this newspaper that the work was paralyzed by environmental regulations when the new finding was found in a coastal area. So it's finding more stuff. Lopez said that they are awaiting for the reception in the coming days of the authorization to continue their usual work. We are in a maritime zone, and so far there has never been a problem. But there has been a recent provision that the provisional authorities cannot give permission to even launch a campaign. It is very simple procedure which we have always followed. We have had to stop until the minister signs it and the deputy minister of postal and marine is aware, he said. The group in charge of this research works together with Dominican and foreign entities such as the Wahayona Institute in Puerto Rico, the Garcia Alvarado Foundation, the Museum of the Dominican Man, National Directorate of Museums, and the Vice Ministry of Protected Areas. On the other hand, in relation to the work in Canton de Dario, Lopez pointed out that they have found a residue of a settlement that could be of an early Saladoi. It is very important at a cultural level because they are the first advanced farmers of the Antilles and that has been able to dig with archaeological methodology on the island of Santo Domingo and possibly has a very large antiquity, he said. Lopez said that they are working, it is an emergency excavation because the sea is eating the site. It has destroyed the archaeological site because it has gotten inside, and what we are doing is saving the last thing that is left there at full speed because for a long time people were collecting the pieces of the pottery, he said. He explained that they came to that place by a person who collected archaeological material from the site and decided, instead of selling it, to deliver it to the Museum of the Dominican Man. So that's the latest of news relating to the archaeological site in Samana. So I want to close with this. This article used to be free, but now you have to pay for it, unfortunately. It's called Bayesian Phylogeography of the Arawak Expansion in Lowland South America. This is a very good article to have. Also, if you're in the New York City area, this is a really good library, which is near Times Square, Schwartzman Library. They have a lot of rare books there that you can find. All right, so this is pretty much it for today. Like, comment, and share. Don't be reactionary, put some thought into it. And until the next build.